I I bought a replacement part, but I haven't installed it yet, and now I'm like just like maybe I just start from the ground up and reinstall the entire computer at the same time.
I
Start
mean,
from scratch, know exactly how everything's, like make sure all the drivers aren't running on top of each other. It's all sorts of
yeah.
new stuff. I don't know. I don't know what to do other than, like
Yeah.
maybe that would help eliminate multiple problems at the same time or not.
It is always the cleanest thing to do to just reinstall everything. It is not, however, the fastest or easiest, sadly.
No, now especially not, because how do you reinstall Windows without it actually trying to save things and move them over?
I'm pretty sure you can tell it, like, don't do that, and it will not.
Yeah, I guess you could. But it would not be clean or quick.
Correct. That part will be annoying, unfortunately. Alrighty. Well, we'll get going then. Hello. It's We Were
Hello.
Gamers, episode 358.
Hello.
Andy.
I'm gonna keep jumping. I'm gonna keep jumping your intro.
I don't know if you're trying to interrupt him or if you actually can't hear us.
Hello, it's We Were Gamers, Andy and Michael.
That would be podcast at weweregamers.com.
Yeah.
And the episode's over. All right. Bye, everyone.
Nice to see you guys. Oh boy. Michael, why are Quicken Mac and Quicken Windows not the same? I mean, just come on.
You know the answer to that. You know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be
That's dumb.
surprised, but
That's dumb. Come on.
I shouldn't be surprised either, but it's 2023. Come on. It's all web-based app anyway.
You know exactly why that is. Come on now.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's dumb. It should be. But yeah.
Yep. I didn't mean to derail you. I'm sorry. It was fun to try.
I mean, why aren't all the Linux app the same as the Mac's app? That's what I want to know. Mac is basically Linux. Like, why can't?
Is it still? It used to be the statement that it was like, this is a Linux wrapper, right? Like back in 2004 or whatever.
I mean, when was the last time they released a OS on the PC?
Whom?
The people that make the Macs.
They release them constantly. I think I just installed a new one like 3 months ago.
But is it like a full version number, or is it just like, security and changes and stuff? I guess I have no clue, actually. So like,
yeah,
I could just be wrong. Yeah,
they update OS X a lot because it is some version of it, something somewhere. They're doing something where they have a machine. And I don't know how this works, but they've got a machine that's spitting out operating systems for phones and iPads and computers, and they're all somehow related to each other because they're all getting worse together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could argue that that's just everything.
Someone was talking about that. It's one of those crank people in the video game industry that people like to make fun of a lot. Was it Jonathan Blow? It's one of those guys.
There is a theory. I don't know theory. It is a little crackpot, but also it is kind of true. In web design and development of like internet website stuff called, pardon the phrase, but this is the actual term. I didn't make this up. Called inshitification.
Okay.
How do I not make that the podcast title?
This is real. I didn't make this up. This is real. The term is that like services start the way they are, and they're good, and they're really user friendly, and they evolve, and as they evolve towards, they just become inshitified as they get bought up and bundled together and made bigger and more corporatized, and then they just get worse. So like the user experiences start really good, and then they get better for a while, and then they go down this trend of inshitification, and they just become horrible hellscapes, which is where a whole bunch of things on the internet have gotten to.
The nicer way to say this is that things that are designed well start with a design philosophy, and then much in the same guise as We Were Gamers, right? You've now lived too long. You know what I mean? Like the iPhone itself has lived too long, and now it must be everything to everyone because the complaints are the only thing that keep people coming back to them. Oh, they fixed my complaint, right? Versus when the thing came out, they were like, this is the way that it works. There will be no substitutions. It was like the 5-star menu, right? Like, you may not have a side salad instead.
So, I mean, the actual, like, the argument in this, as part of this thing is that it is made actively worse because the user experience is what brings all the people in. And once the people are there, you got to make that money. And you got to make it worse for them because it was good when there was no money being made. But
Right,
now
sure.
it has to be made actively worse in order to make money. And so that is the trend, right?
This is not directly the theory. The other theory that I was reading about from, I think it was him, Jonathan Plum. But I don't want to attribute it to him necessarily. I don't want to keep saying his name.
He writes a lot of things, so
he does, and that's why I think that it's him. And that is that processing power has now allowed everything to be duct taped together, and things are just coded terribly.
Oh, that's so true. That's 1,000% true.
Wherein you had to tell
processors can just chug through the bad code fast enough that you don't notice.
Yeah, kind
Pretty
of.
much.
But also, like, what someone could make something do in 3 kilobytes before, it takes a megabyte, right?
It's because no one codes every single step all the way from the processor
Right.
all the way up to the code that's running on your screen. They use libraries, and the library has 10 million functions that they don't actually care about, but they need 2 of them. And so you include a 10 megabyte library.
Right. You just
And
dump
then
the
they're-
library onto there. And so
Exactly.
well, this guy's code worked for this, right? Someone made the jump code that I'm going to use, so I'm just going to copy paste their jump code, and I'm going to copy paste somebody else's shoot code. I'm going to copy paste somebody else's this code, and now they're all sitting on top of each other, but they have a conflict. So now I need to add 3 more lines of code to fix the conflict instead of going back to the other codes.
Yeah, because you've included these libraries, you don't want to touch the library, so you can only make the changes intermediately, which then causes more things to be pasted together, right? It's very much a similar theory, but in specifically talking about software.
Yeah, so the software theory is like like especially for the Apple, it seems like to me they took a decent operating system and now they're just like bricking on top of it. Like, there's a really good foundation there, and they just keep laying new bricks on top of it without thinking about what's underneath anymore.
Oh yeah, it's 100% this, right? It's not just. It sort of applies to everything on the internet and everything on computers, right? Like, it's the house can only hold so many things, but they keep building stories up, right?
A good example of this would be in a bathroom that we have where there was fine sheetrock, which someone then painted on, which someone then put wallpaper on, which someone then painted on, which someone then used wallpaper on.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So it's not
They're like, oh, we'll just take we'll just take the piece of wallpaper off. Oh God, there's 700 layers behind you.
Yep, this was off topic. Sorry.
I mean, was it off topic though? Speaking of things exploding, Andrew.
Do any of you have Asus AM5 motherboards? Is that what you're asking me about?
I mean, I think that's what we're talking about here.
Okay. Well, I know none of us have AM5 computers, being the newest, what is it, 7 series Ryzen
I think
chips?
Yes.
Those are socketed into AM5 sockets. Have either of you, I mean, JJ, maybe you've had a little bit of it, but
I've
Michael,
seen some of this
you heard
stuff,
about this
news, but I'm curious what the full details are.
No,
Okay.
so I'm in the dark here.
You're in the dark. Okay, so I will walk from the beginning. Some stuff started appearing on Reddit and YouTube of people being like, hey, this is weird. My 7800 X3D, which is brand new, blew up. So, oh, weird. Mine did too. And you know the snowballs that start when people start posting things on the internet. And Gamers Nexus has to get the immediate shout out here because they seem to be turning into quite the little investigative outlet, and they caught wind of it, and they were like, "Hey, everybody, please post the boards you're talking about." And the list started to come up, and it was like Asus, 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 Gigabyte, Asus, Asus, Asus. So they bought some of these things, these burnt out boards and chips, and they were like, well, this certainly seems to be like a voltage problem, so let's test it. So they bought a bunch of boards. The upper VSOC, JJ, we should call this a component class, I guess, huh? Because we're going to talk about motherboards here.
Component adjacent.
Component adjacent, for sure.
So motherboards have a lot of settings in them. A lot of this stuff, when we were gamers, you had to do by hand. And there were huge warnings, and you would void your warranty for doing stuff like this, like setting voltages, right? Setting voltages, among other things, and this is pertinent to the story, among other things, including increasing performance, etc. Setting voltages allows you to accommodate for faster memory timings, which we'll come back into in a second.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, to be clear, this is like super duper common. When you buy RAM, like it's very commonly expected that you will have to modify the stock timings to use the fast, expensive, cool RAM you just bought.
Sure. I mean, we did a component class on motherboards. Go back and find it. We talked about setting your timings in the BIOS. So you go into the motherboard operating system, built-in operating system, BIOS, and you set your timings for your memories. So one thing, though, that we used to do that they also now do in BIOSes is set voltages for the actual chip, not the memory chips, the actual CPU. And this also helps to accommodate wider ranges of memory. So when we were talking about why we didn't hold out and go for this newer generation, the Intel and AMD DDR5 generation, what was the big holdback for us, Michael? Do you remember?
I remember that there was one, and it had to do with not being able to realize the full capability of, what was it?
It was RAM related.
Was it the RAM, the difference between the RAM and the CPU speeds? You were going to be throttling one of them.
Yeah. So the RAMs were very slow initially and expensive.
Yeah, the expensive part was the part I remembered.
Yes.
Yeah. So much like cars and video cards and everything else now that is trying to get more performance, what do? Shove more power through it.
Yeah, man.
So AMD said, okay, we know that the RAM timings are slow. We've made the chips stable at higher voltages for the temperatures. You can put 1.3 volts through this thing. It's pretty high. That's pretty high. I think most of them stock. I think all of ours are probably running at like 1.02.
To be clear, right, this is DDR5 though, so I don't know that those numbers are directly
we're still
comparable.
talking about just the CPU though, JJ.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
we're still talking about CPU. Then yes, those numbers,
Most RAMs take a stock 1.33 volts, I think.
yes,
Too high for a CPU, too hot.
yes.
Okay, so still talking about the CPU. AMD says that's allowed, but it's not allowed stock. It's allowed in overclocking. Again, we used to do this back in the day by hand, and you could blow things up. Well, now the fancy Asus motherboards, the fancy Gigabyte motherboards, all the fancy overclocking motherboards, you just click Expo or whatever it's called on Intel these days, and it just shoves the voltage up to one of the predetermined functional levels, which will then allow more RAM timings. This is the big thing, right? So
I think the Intel one is called XMP.
XMP, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
But yeah, it's just like Andrew is exactly right. Right, you go to a drop down menu somewhere, and you click Expo or whatever, or
Yep.
XMP or whatever, and it just works. You don't have to configure anything by hand anymore if you don't
No.
want to.
So to be clear, this is for I would need to be clear about two things before we get into this story. One, this is built into your fancy motherboard for overclocking. Two, this is so they can accommodate what it says on the back of the box as compatible RAM timings and speeds, right? Speeds especially.
Like
Okay.
those numbers on the back of that box are straight up lies if you can't use this stuff.
Right. Yep. So Asus, it turns out, after a lot of research from the GN people, lots of credit to them. There's about 3 40-minute videos of the back and forth in this before the 40-minute video that came out today. So I'm going to condense it into probably like 5 more minutes maybe. But if you're interested in this story, you should go check it out because it is a great component class situation. They take apart these Asus motherboards and they get it to blow up a CPU. And they get it to blow up a CPU by not doing much of anything other than like running it on high at its highest end stock performances. So then they soldered a bunch of leads on these things. They put it on Expo or XMP2 to run it as high as it can go in the stock settings. And then they stress test it and they blow it up again and again. These things are running at sometimes spiking to 1.4 volts through the CPU.
Which, for those of you paying attention, he said how much earlier?
1.3 max.
3 at a very high end, right? You're talking a tenth of a volt higher than that. Yikes!
Yeah, tenth of a volt doesn't sound like a whole lot for sticking your finger in a socket, but remember the components
very
are
sensitive electronics.
Yeah.
Right. These are things with traces that measure in the nanometers. 100 millivolts is huge.
Think about a AA battery with 0.1 volts goes from fully functional to dead, right? Like 0.1 volts matters in these types of things.
A AA battery does 1.5 volts, right?
No, I know that, but when
I just mean that the total voltage there that you get out of AA is like 0.1 amps at 1.5 volts. All right.
Yes.
It's more amps than that. Anyway, whatever.
It's a little bit. It's a bit tiny bit more amps than that. Yeah.
That's not much power in the grand scheme of things.
No.
Except that your CPU uses 240 watts. So where is that coming from? You know, like that number is got to be somewhere, and it's gonna do some bad stuff to you if you go over that number.
So immediately the alarm bells go off. They're like, well, what's the deal here? Why are these blowing up? And that's the real question, and where it gets into like something's very wrong here. They shouldn't be blowing up because they took these apart and they're like, there's like lines inside them. There's scorch marks. There's all sorts of stuff. And it's like, where's the protections?
Folks should go watch that video, by the way.
It's fantastic.
They literally show you the inside of the exploded CPU. They sent it to like a cool lab. It's like a sweet video if you want to see stuff that blows up.
That's cool.
Yeah. Long story short, Asus, Gigabyte and others have their problems. They tested all the other boards and they actually found bugs in all the BIOSes. But Asus basically was running things with with all safeties off. No thermal throttling, no thermal limiter shutdowns, way past the voltage limits. Everything to try and get the back of the box performance without doing the work to do it. Right? Just shove more volts through it until it works was the answer.
And then don't check that any of the other pieces are still within tolerance while doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's like this number is allowed to go up to this number. Okay, so they adjust it, and then they don't adjust anything else, even though there's knock-on effects from doing all of these things, right?
Tons of knock-on effects. So they immediately say they're not at fault, but within days there's a patch, right? And the patch supposedly is a safety-related thing to make sure they're not at fault. Well, they test it again, and they sure enough moved the voltages down in the Expo menus, but their parts are not synced correctly, like JJ's saying. So even though they've moved them down, they're still out of spec, still above spec. And AMD's running around with their hair on fire, being like, we keep telling people these are the voltages to run out, but here's our communicate. And this is where it all unravels and spirals out of control. Here's our communications with all of our people. Here's especially a few that say they're going to do whatever they want to do because that's the deal and they're allowed to run their parts their way and they're ignoring our advice. So immediately AMD's throwing people under the bus. Well, now everybody's pointing fingers at Asus, and Asus's PR team is out on the internet trying to put out all the fires, but they're not putting them out in the right ways. They're putting them out by saying, we make good products and the people that are reviewing them as good are paid to review them as good. We think that's advertising.
Let's all condemn the journalists. That's really the problem here. Definitely the journalists.
So maybe the journalists should have tried harder or blah, blah, blah. So they're like, then they're sending letters to other, this part, I'm just going to gloss over it because I don't want to get into the drama of then outlets are fighting each other and they're all trying to like point fingers at GN. Then GN points fingers saying things about warranties. At one point, Asus, now it's very clear they're at fault. And so they put out a beta patch that they just decided to call a beta so that they could put in there that if you install the beta, it voids your warranty because you're using Expo and XMP.
Wow.
And you're like, what?
That is the craziest thing I have heard a company do. It's like, please install this beta. It fixes stuff. Also, you accept all liability. We will sue you forever. Ha ha ha. Like what?
Yeah. It spirals out of control in terms of the PR stuff. I guess this week they did a full 180 and they're like, no. If it's installed on the board, it's of course covered under our warranty. That was just boilerplate. And it's like, no other.
Whoa, my guys!
Nothing else you have sold has this.
No other BIOS release ever has said that it voids your warranty. So
that's interesting.
Sure, weird.
We're sorry you noticed this problem. Kind of answer.
Yeah, it got really out of control really fast. When all they had to do is be like, "Yep, we were at fault. Sorry," and fix it.
Yeah, you know? Like it just be like, oh dang, sorry y'all, we're working on a fix. There you go, problem solved. In the meantime, use this other setting that is safe.
Yep.
Is that hard?
Nope.
Woof.
Yeah, it got a little crazy. So, yeah, I guess it's safe to use again. They supposedly have now fixed the problem with a regular release. But what I wanted to mention about it was like the component class aspect of it is this stuff is supposedly supposed to be safer, right? Like the craziest part about all this was it really is a bummer for people like us to be like, we're enthusiasts. We don't have time to be sitting around figuring out voltages anymore. We're glad that there are other enthusiasts now working at these companies that are setting these things up in advance. And like that could have been us, right? Like I went in and hit all the overclock buttons in this new computer because they're there, and I bought the parts for them to be there and to run well. And like that could have just ended us podcasting for weeks while I waited for new parts from an RMA, right? Like,
or like now you have to distrust everything that they claim because they say they set the voltage, but now are they, right?
Yeah, and to claim that XMP and Expo are overclocking these days when they're clearly just part of the system, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, if you want the technical definition of the term, it is overclocking these standard settings. But if you want to revert everyone back to the standard settings, I think everyone's computer is going to have a bad day and no one will be happy about it, including you, the person probably writing the email to me telling me to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these things, especially with the new RAM, they're made to run faster. So that was the nuts story about Asus in the last. I mean, this has been going on almost a month. Almost a month for them to fix it and be like, "Yo, we're sorry."
It's
crazy,
so wild, man.
Which was the appropriate response in the first place.
was the easiest response to have just done that in the first place, right? They could have just been like, whoopsie.
Our bad.
Our bad. Hey,
Yeah.
turn everything back down to stock for 2 weeks while we get the fix in place.
Yeah, literally no one would complain, right?
I mean, people would complain, but at least you'd slow
but
the
no one is going to be mad
RMAs.
about it, right? It's
Sure.
like, oh yeah, okay, like we got you
Sure.
guys, no problem. Like
Yeah.
it turns into a good story for you instead of a bad story.
I mean, if you really get into this story, the finger pointing between outlets, I mean, like outlets were dropping Asus as sponsors. Other outlets were saying like, of course we're not going to drop them as a sponsor. They've been very good to us. And then people being like, look, on all your videos, they comment at how great your reviews are. And man, there was a lot of journalistic let's just say there's been an interesting conflagration of who's a journalist and who's not in the tech space recently, with the major players kind of all headed downhill. I think PC Gamer and Tom's Hardware being like the big stand-ups still.
At this point, there are barely journalists on the internet, period, anywhere.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of, I mean, in one of the videos about this, there's a lot of the people just reading verbatim press releases as literal information,
Oh yeah, that is rampant, and not just on
everywhere.
line. Like
yes,
that is on newspapers, that is in magazines, that is everything. Okay, old man who reads newspapers and magazines. Sorry, jeez. Speaking of
get
things,
the
old
front
people,
page of a newspaper emailed to me every day, just so you know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, at least
You're not alone.
At least you're reading. At least you're reading it through email instead of a physical copy.
We were gamers. You get old enough to need to support the news.
Speaking of things for old people, coming through this really quick. Hey, Andrew and Michael, do you guys care or are you interested at all that Magic the Gathering Arena is coming to Steam? By the time you hear this podcast,
being on Epic and coming to Steam, what's the difference?
I don't know. You'll see when I'm playing Magic on Steam now.
I guess that matters.
I mean, I don't know.
Is it the same account? Is it cross?
Yes. You're still using your Wizards account, so it's all.
Can I use it with a Steam Deck?
I don't know. If it's a Steam Deck, I don't know.
I didn't like it on mobile, I gotta say.
Yeah, and the phone version isn't awesome. I will agree with you there.
It didn't strike me as something that I would enjoy playing hours of. Maybe on a Steam Deck it would. I don't know. COTC takes up a lot of my card game time now. I feel like it has replaced those style, like the Hearthstone minute that we used to have on here is definitely the COTC minute for me.
Yeah, I think I feel that.
That's good. I'm happy for you. I mean,
we're doing it random that they do it now, but okay.
Well, their agreement with Epic probably ended, right?
It's been on Epic for like 3 years, man. They have a 3-year agreement. Wow.
I don't know. Whatever. If it's anything like the EA problems, the Steam version will run better. They have that problem with Apex. The Steam version for some reason just launches more stably.
Huh. I've been using the standalone, non-Epic, non-Steam version for a long time, and it doesn't run awesome. So I would be curious if the Steam version does.
Report back. Let us know. Because I use the standalone version as well. When I use it every 3 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you use it?
Nah.
It is interesting some of the changes they've made, though. Like, you don't have to enter codes and stuff anymore. They just mail them to you.
Oh, cool.
Somehow some of that works.
Yeah.
All right. More quick stuff. I think, Michael, you also backed this Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter now?
I did, yes.
Whenever that was, a long time ago?
Yeah.
I finally finished the first of those books.
Are there more out than one?
The second one came out very recently.
Yeah, so you could you got like with all Kickstarters, there are all kinds of tiers involved. But
I
you could either choose some combination of digital or hardcover copies of these surprise books that he dropped.
I implore you both to listen to that podcast about the HasLab and my enduring opinions about Kickstarter and how it's failing companies that are trying to
Oh
actually
yeah,
make it.
I did listen. I just listened to that over the weekend.
Stretch goals. Yuck.
Yeah, it's bad. However, this was the most funded Kickstarter of all time, so I think Brandon Sanderson is okay.
So maybe you could have done it without Kickstarter.
Very likely.
Probably.
Very likely.
I think that's the key right there, right? Like all these people that go to Kickstarter and make it seem like Kickstarter made them successful. It's like, I think Bloodstained would have been funded with or without it.
Sure. I think big names use Kickstarter just because the infrastructure is built in.
Sure.
Yeah. But you're very likely correct that someone as big as Brandon Sanderson could have just been like, hey, y'all, give us money. And then it would have correctly worked out in the way that he
It still would have
I
flown
think-
in. Yeah.
I know that he's not a J.K. Rowling level, and I'm just coming up with like a level of income / richness. I know he's not that guy, but like he could probably self-fund a book at this point, right?
Does he have a I mean, he does have a publisher, I guess. So, but yeah, the dude has published so many books. There's no way he doesn't just have like a lot of money laying around.
Yeah. And he's in talks to sell the rights to some of his properties for movie, for TV. So
Yeah.
And Ed still writes
he's
like
doing
4
okay.
books a year. Like the dude is a machine.
Sorry. Hey,
anyway,
what about this book?
That book is pretty good. Is it? It's not a spoiler to say the title, right?
No, I don't think so.
The book is just out. People can just buy it. Okay.
Yes.
Tress of the Emerald Sea is the name of the book. It's great. I really enjoyed
Is
it.
it related to other books of his or no?
It is in the Cosmere, if that was your question.
Yes, that's my question.
Yes, and it is. It is very vaguely related to. I would say that it is very vaguely related to the most recent book that he put out, not as part of the Kickstarter. Only in the sense that it explains where one of the characters comes from in that book.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. There are connections to other Cosmere novels. If you have read them, you'll know some stuff, or you'll understand some things.
The narrator is the big one.
Yes, the narrator is the big one. It's not going to tell you anything about this particular story, just like all his Cosmere stuff, where like things are sort of lightly connected, but like not. It doesn't help you the story you're reading, but it's like, oh, I know what this is. Like, that's kind of how it goes. It was a great story, though. I really enjoyed it. Folks should check that out if you like his stuff. Yo, this is one of those, and it is fun.
Great. It's a good standalone too. If you've never tried some of his stuff and you want something that's a little more fun than some of his more serious sagas, this is a good one.
A lot of his stuff has like many parts and is long fantasy epic type stuff. This is pretty brisk, short standalone. So recommended it from that direction for sure.
Since we're on books, can I?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to leave this for a Star Trek podcast, so I just want to say it out loud. I lost and refound a book that I had started last year. I took it on a trip and I forgot it in a bag, and we had talked about me reading it, and then I never finished it. I finished that book, Die Standing, by is it John Jackson Miller? John Miller Jackson. He's a comic book. John Jackson Miller.
John Jackson Miller.
Yeah, John Jackson Miller. He's a prolific fantasy and sci-fi dude. He wrote Star Wars, Jedi Knight, the old one, Knights of the Old Republic. That's the one. He wrote a bunch of trilogies for the Star Trek universe. Anyway, this one is about Giorgio, JJ.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And my review of it is exactly the same as that Picard book that I talked about before. Why isn't this part of the show?
the story is better than the than the
No,
actual story it's telling?
because we even discussed like off screen at some point Giorgio. Oh God, spoilers! I guess spoilers. Giorgio Imperatus Tyrannicus, right?
Yeah.
Seems to have undergone some sort of life-changing thing where she decided to be good-ish enough to stay in the Prime universe. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
This book is about why.
That
So
seems like stuff that could have been better.
yeah, it's about how she got started with Section 31. Like they have a whole book about like this is how she starts with Section 31 and why she actually works for them without trying to like use them to take over the galaxy, you know? So my review of it is that John Jackson Miller is an author that I like and the book is good and Emperor Giorgio is always fun to read about. So
I like this.
yeah, if you go find that, there's like a zillion Discovery novels. I can't vouch for many of them, but his one that I've read so far has been good. He has another one that I'm going to read next about the Enterprise. We shall see. And there's an
Nice.
appearance by Kirk.
Oh
Always
yeah.
good.
Wait. Is Giorgio in the future or I forget the timelines of Enterprise.
At the
that
time that this book takes
Discovery,
place,
sorry.
so in the Discovery timeline, at the time this book takes place, it's in pre OG series because she has just joined Section 31. There hasn't been the time jump yet.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay.
That's my short review.
Got it. Good. She is always good for a laugh.
She's good for a hearty, deep, quiet chuckle while you're reading in bed.
Yes. Very good character. Hey, speaking of characters, I know this is a bad segue, but I'm doing it anyway. I meant to talk about this a couple weeks ago when I actually did play it, but I forgot to bring it up. I played the Diablo 4 open beta that happened a couple weeks ago.
There are characters in there.
There are characters in there. It's the first 25 levels. I only played one class, so I can't talk about any of the others. I played the sorcerer mage thing.
Okay. Spellcaster.
Yeah. Ask me anything you guys want to know about Diablo 4. I can answer from the first 24 levels.
Is it
25 levels?
Is it prettier Diablo 3 without an auction house?
There's definitely no auction house. I can tell you that. Is it prettier? I think it's prettier. Yeah. It plays less
3?
like Diablo 3 than
What is different then between that and Diablo 3 in your don't give me a technical readout, but like in your feeling of like when I played Diablo 3 it was like XYZ thing.
I've played Diablo 2 recently again, and this feels like halfway between the Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. That's how I'll say. There's still a skill tree like Diablo 2 where you got to put points into stuff, but then you got to have multiple points and stuff sometimes, and that just gives it like a more, I don't know, like locked feeling for what your character build is. But like, it's only the first 20 whatever levels, so I'm just like running around picking up like blues and greens and just like equipping whatever thing I can because that's all you get in the first 20 whatever levels,
Yeah.
So
especially in the no one knows where the good items are. You're not going to farm them at level 20. Like in D3 it was like, oh, I can just get a purple here that'll last me 10, 15 levels.
Yeah, and you would finish a big story quest and you would get like a yellow and you're like, oh sweet, this yellow is definitely better than whatever random garbage I'm wearing for this slot.
Mm-hmm.
I did hit the level cap in that thing. It was pretty low. It was only like level 20 or whatever. And I did see more legendaries start dropping when I got to that level. I just wonder if it was kind of like they're like, all right, man, you got to the cap. Here's like cool loot. Enjoy. Hilariously, I got some loot that was too high level for me to equip. It's like, you can't equip this. Like, you need level 22 or whatever. I'm like, you can't go above 20. What is this garbage?
I think I understand that, actually. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, dude,
like,
they know. Yeah.
You know.
That was fun. I did the world boss, fought that thing.
How did that go?
It's interesting. It's like it seems like it's instanced in some way when you go in there.
It has to
They
be,
take a
otherwise it
group.
would never be there, right?
They take a group of like 20 people or so, it seems, and you fight together with that group, almost like raid style, against this big world boss. Hey, Andy, do you remember that demo we did of Diablo 4?
Yeah. When I could
Do
never
you remember
find the
that?
world boss?
Did you never find the world boss in
No,
that
because
thing?
the instance was our raid, and so I missed it. It was dead by the time I got there.
Oh, like big F off, like
Uh-huh.
dragony thing with
Yeah, it was
weird
dead. It
claws and
was
poison all
literally
over the
dead
place?
on the ground by the time I got there.
Ah, okay. I did remember seeing it then. And yeah, that is the same thing. This is that thing.
So 5 years ago when we played a demo,
Uh-huh. Same
this is
thing.
the
Yep.
same demo.
It does not act the same way, and it is not the same demo.
I
Absolutely
wonder
not.
if they probably changed it up.
So it doesn't take place in the same area, from what I could tell. Um, this definitely felt more like a finished product. There was a lot of story in this. Like you have the entire first act, it seems. So there's a bunch of cutscenes I'd never seen before. There's a bunch of quests.
Okay.
There's multiple different city hubs that you go to that have people in there that give you stuff to do in an area around where the city is.
Sure.
And the main quests you follow around, you meet multiple characters doing Diablo stuff, mostly involving killing a bunch of guys and then finding artifacts and then doing Diablo stuff with them.
Hmm.
It's cool. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I'm they called it a server slam to see how like popular and like how they could stress the servers, but they like released it on the same day as Tears of the Kingdom. So don't know how much slamming they got done on that server. I'll
I
tell you, when I logged in, there were no wait times.
I certainly played the heck out of Diablo 3, and I couldn't find the time to get on there during then.
Yeah. So, I have a feeling I'll end up playing some Diablo 4. Who knows if we'll end up sticking with it like we did 3 or not.
Okay.
I suspect I'll play it a bit. The story seems good.
Nice.
I mean, it's going to be related,
let's-
I think. I'm pretty sure, based on the artwork, that it's related and continuation of the previous
to
story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
Let's say based on the artwork. I'm pretty sure.
They have if people want to see some like fun video Diablo content, Blizzard has put out a couple of like lore primer videos. That kind of like giving you the story on the lead up of like the building of the world of Sanctuary, and then now the second one on I forget what anyway, there's two of them, and I think there's going to be another one coming up to release here, but they're like, pretty art assets, but like telling you the story of the creation of the world and the creation of this particular Earth. And then I don't know what the next one will be, but narrated by the guy who has just one of those amazing narrator voices, who is
Yeah.
the voiceover for large portions of the text in this game. I need to find that guy's name. He's a guy, you've heard of him. He has one of those like really deep, sonorous voices that just sound amazing.
Oh.
So if people want to listen to some guy talk about Diablo stuff, it's great.
Is it oh god. Chronicles of Riddick? That's not the best movie to remember him from, but but Keith David.
No,
It's not Keith David.
Oh no, it's not.
Oh. That's when somebody says sonorous voice, that's who I immediately think of.
He does have one of those voices, though. You're 100% correct. Ralph Ineson. Ineson. He's the voice actor for Lorath in this game and narrates large portions of it.
Oh.
This guy is a guy. You've heard this guy. 100%.
Uh-huh. He's much more British in the voice category. We were watching.
Yeah.
Did I mention this? Did I mention this to you guys? We were watching Ted Lasso.
Oh, he was in The Green Knight. That's why I know this guy.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Should I watch that?
The Green Knight is great, Andrew.
He was in. He was in Game of Thrones. This guy.
Oh,
He was. Yeah. Anyway, we were watching Ted Lasso the other day,
okay.
and Vincent Price is like the original Disneyland voice, but then came Paul Frees. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but he's the man of 1,000 voices, and Walt Disney like loved the guy, and so he basically recorded and is the voice of anything and everything at Disneyland.
Yep.
The guys, JJ, there's always my way out. That guy.
Oh yeah, okay. The
That's-
guy from the Haunted Mansion. Yeah.
He's everywhere. Like he just does a different iteration of his voice in all of Disneyland.
Okay.
Paul Frees is the guy. And so when you're talking about like voice actors, I was just on this kick. We were watching what did I say we were watching? We were watching Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso. And there was a voice in Ted Lasso, and I was like, oh my God, that's 100% Paul Frees. And that's like, there's no way it's Paul Frees because the man died in like 1980 or something. There's a section of one of the episodes where there's a literal breakdown that one of the guys has, and he starts imagining things in his head exactly like the animation style, like the Magic Land, whatever the heck that thing is.
Donald in Math Magic Land?
Yeah, yes. Remember when he gets like stuck in a triangle or whatever?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that starts happening to Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso, and I kid you not, I had like a heart palpitation listening to it because it was Paul Frees narrating it. There's a new guy named Corey Burton that does those voices.
He just sounds like the guy.
He, I guess, fell in love with Haunted Mansion and started doing voices. You should look up this dude's resume. Corey with an E. Corey Burton. Burton. He does the voices of Cad Bane and Count Dooku in Star Wars. He does the voices in Kingdom Hearts for half the characters. He's done JLA. He's done a whole bunch of re-recordings for Disneyland. He's like Disney's new go-to Paul Frees.
You're saying the man gets a lot of work.
Holy cow.
Oh
Okay.
my God, the number of credits he has.
I
listed on IMDb
see.
is
Thank
like
you for looking. I'm
a
not.
large
Goes and
number.
goes.
It goes on
It's a large
forever. You should watch that little clip because the nostalgia I had listening to it was palpable to my body. It really sent me through like a very 1980 nostalgia moment. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry to derail this with
No, yeah.
voice acting situations.
I don't even know what we were talking about. Anyway,
Diablo
yeah,
4 and
cool.
voice acting videos.
I don't know. Anyone else have any questions about that game? I don't know. I don't know what there is to say about it. It's coming out pretty soon at this
You
point.
don't
so
sound as
people
excited
enjoy
as
it.
I was hoping, is what I'm gonna say.
Yo, it's Diablo. It's still the game.
So you don't see us playing it over and over and over and doing terror or what was that?
So they've changed the way that system works a little bit. That's not how that works anymore. But I mean, there's an equivalent, right? There's like a world level or something, and you can just turn it up.
Sure.
Um,
Instead of doing those little instances all the time.
It definitely feels like they took the criticisms to heart that people had about Diablo 3 not being like Diablo 2,
Okay.
and they made this game more like Diablo 2. That's
Okay.
the feeling that I got.
All right.
So
Diablo's
presumably-
pretty fun. I mean, I don't know,
presumably
nothing wrong
people
with
will be
that.
Happy.
Sure.
But it's definitely not Diablo 2 though either, right? There's definitely still a lot of non-new, and there's all new stuff here, right? So it's hard to compare there. And I only did play the first 20 levels, so I mean, who knows? Stuff
All right.
could all change and get higher up on the skill tree, and then all of a sudden you unlock, screen clearing blizzards or whatever, and then all of a sudden it turns back into Diablo 3.
That was definitely part of Diablo 3 for sure.
It's like obliterate everything you see.
You can't see anything.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It's all dead.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Closing in on the end here. Michael, I know you and I have both had some barbecue recently.
Yeah, we're gonna
BB?
end with food today.
BBQ?
Yeah, we're ending with food.
Woohoo!
So I know I recently spent some time at Heritage Barbecue's Oceanside pub location.
Yeah, and we just visited their first location in San Juan Capistrano over the weekend for the first time.
How is that your first time?
We live far from there,
We
kind of.
we're not that far. Not from it's 20, 25 minutes.
What is there to do in San Juan Capistrano?
I mean, walk
Not wrong
past the
about
mission to Heritage Barbecue.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Walk down that street and be like, this area is nice. Then get back in your car. So how did you guys what did you have? What did you like? How'd it go?
So we got there a bit later in the day,
Uh-oh.
especially for them because they're only open like 11 to 6 at that location.
And often sold out of
But
things.
they were sold out of several things, but they had brisket, they still had pulled pork. They had unfortunately just sold out of the ribs for the day, the spare ribs that they had. And then they still had the sausage of the day, which on that particular day was pot sticker.
Oh,
What?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
it was good.
Explain.
I mean, the filling of the sausage was like full of a lot of the things that you would find inside pot stickers.
Okay.
It was like pork sausage, but it had carrot and cabbage and some other things.
Weirded me out a little bit, but not a lot.
It was good. It was good.
I will tell you that I've seen on their social media they advertise a bunch of really wild, weird sausage stuff, and it changes like every few days, and it's interesting generally, and none of it I think bad. The couple times we went, we got one time it was like cheddar cheeseburgers or something.
Oh, okay,
It was pretty good.
Man.
sure.
And then the other time was hot something I don't remember,
All right.
and it was pretty hot. They were not. When they
weren't
said
joking
hot, they
around.
meant it.
They weren't
Yeah.
messing around. Yeah.
But how did you like the rest of it? So this was your first time, right?
Yeah, so we had eaten from them when they did pop-ups several times before. We just hadn't gone down that way since they opened up their permanent location.
Ah, okay. So you kind of knew what you were getting into.
Yeah, we knew what to expect. We knew the quality of barbecue that they turn out. But it was really good.
High quality.
It was really good. I really liked they do like smoky chipotle pinto beans. They do their slaw. At least the day we were there, they did their slaw with a poblano crema. What else did we get? The jalapeno cornbread muffins are always really good.
Yes. My wife and I love those.
But maybe the best thing that we had on the day was they had a banana bread pudding.
Whoa. Pudding.
Yeah. It was like banana pudding,
bread
but instead of cookies, they had in addition to the cookies, they had used banana bread.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
It was it was better than that.
So I will say, we at the brew pub in Oceanside, a lot of similar stuff. It seems like their meat menu sort of varies a little bit week to week. Where it's like, they may show on their social media, "Hey, come down, we have these big beef ribs," but like they might not that day, right? They might just be out.
Right.
That's kind of how that stuff goes.
Mhm.
But they did have the pastrami for like you could just buy, which was different. I don't recall the location up north having pastrami, like just you can order like, half a pound of pastrami or whatever.
Yeah.
I, a pastrami liker, enjoyed this. I don't know that anyone else at the table with me was interested in the pastrami, but I got some pastrami.
More for you.
Yeah. But I think the takeaway I came with from that place is that the meat is still good. It's the same stuff. It's enjoyable. If you like their barbecue sauce, they still got it. It's good. But maybe if you go to that place, plan to order like tacos, or they have a pastrami sandwich, which I'm ruining that I did not get. Or plan to get something else. Not that the plate of meat is not good. It is good, but it's the same thing you would get at the Heritage Place up north, but with maybe less selection, right?
Okay.
Like their sausage was Texas hot link. There was no options.
So a little more generic.
And I don't think that they rotate it.
Okay, so it's a pub. It's not a, place.
Yeah, but in the compensation, right? They have a whole bunch of beers that they brew there. I tried like 3, all of which were pretty good, and they also serve cocktails. So you could have more drink selection.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is a little bar next door to the Heritage in San Juan, right?
Do they allow you to bring Heritage over there? Because that seems like something they should do.
They're connected. It's all one building. So the bar's on the end of the building, and you just go to the end and order your drinks.
Have you not been there either, Andy?
No, I haven't been there.
Wow. Man, you guys got to go. Although maybe you don't got to go because it will bankrupt you.
It's difficult. I know that it's not far, but in this era of living, 50 minutes round trip costs something. Not necessarily the gasoline, you know what I mean? But like,
just time that could be going elsewhere.
50 minutes costs something somewhere.
Yeah, it is. If you're at friend of the pod Matt's place, you're 98% of the way there, right?
Yeah,
so he doesn't know it yet, but there's a soccer tournament coming up in his neck of the woods, wherein I've already told the families we're getting a picnic lunch from Heritage.
There you go.
All right, that's the envy of the entire field there.
I've told them they're welcome to get their orders in advance.
Yeah, they do a pickup service there that's pretty good.
Excellent.
So recommend that if that's what you're looking to do. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Michael. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it is worth checking out for folks that are in Oceanside area.
Absolutely. If it sways anybody's opinion who wasn't already sold, they recently made the Bib Gourmand list.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about 5-star Michelin stars and all that, they're on the list. They're just not starred.
Yeah, their barbecue is really fantastic, and the sides are also amazing. So,
oh yeah,
all that mac and cheese is like. All right, I can't just keep doing this, Andrew. I can't keep talking about food. It's
you. Then you have to end the pod, man, because otherwise we're gonna go into more of it. So,
is there more food?
I don't know. I could make up something.
We'll save it for next week.
Yeah, we can save it for next week. All right, Michael, where do people got to go if they want to talk to us about food or other things?
People can shoot us an email at podcast@weweregamers.com. Tell us what you've been eating this week. And you can also find us on Facebook, on Instagram, We Were Gamers, and you should go check out our YouTube channel.
I forgot to mention something on the pod. PSA, an actual PSA on the pod was it's gaming week on Prime. Amazon Prime. So they're like giving away some games and stuff on Twitch, but there's also like major discounts on like Switch games and PlayStation games and a ton of equipment and stuff like that. And I think that it has caused other companies to like push down their prices. So
worth noting.
Just flip through, like Steam looks like they're doing a little mini dump on games too. I don't know if that was caused by them, but it seems like a lot of them are sneaky
on
sailing.
sale on Steam every dang day, man.
That's true. Good point.
Can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah. Well, the baseball thing, we don't need to save it for next week, but the baseball thing was that Shohei pitched a win and missed hitting a cycle in the same game